Greetings, YouTube. Today I'll be talking about how to dunk a donut. The Science of Everyday Life by Len Fisher, winner of the Ig Nobel Prize in Physics. Interestingly, the chapter that deals with actually how to dunk a donut deals more with how to dunk a cookie, because he did some really deep research on the best method to keep a cookie whole when dipping it into different substances, tea, coffee, milk, things like that. And apparently, if you have a cookie, you dip it in the traditional vertical way, you get penetration on both sides, and the cookie's integrity is destroyed much faster. However, if you come in at an angle, the cookie will still absorb the liquid, but it will remain whole because the top portion remains dry. So you maintain structural integrity of the cookie. Um, so what else do we have in here as far as is there a chapter? There's a chapter breakdown. Wait a second. Not well. There we go. I'm not well prepared apparently. The art and science of dunking. Yep. How does a science how does a scientist boil an egg, which is about a researcher who uses modern science to really get into the essence of food, and testing which was the best methods to achieve a hard-boiled egg or a soft-boiled egg. And they had a conference where that was one of the topics, and it was kind of interesting to see these very um, eggheads talking about how to do this very simple thing, but find the best method, the most accurate, most repeatable method for cooking an egg using the scientific method to its fullest, which I find that kind of interesting. The Tao of tools, which is breaking down tools into their base categories and then trying to figure out if our modern tools are as efficient as they could be. And they're pretty good. If you look at the science of it, what craftsmen have developed over time through natural evolution of use um, is pretty good. And I personally have experienced that using a tool or making a tool for something and how it changes and evolves over time as you discover a more efficient way of using it. I personally have encountered that myself. How to add up your supermarket bill, talking about the idea of rounding things up and down and how to have a running tab in your head. And he came up with the method, and his wife came up with the method. And over time, his wife's method, which is not from the point of view of a mathematician, actually proved to be more accurate than his method, even though he argues that his method, if applied properly, there's the key, is more efficient. So there's a little bit of husband and wife going in there. How to throw a boomerang. I found this chapter very interesting because it talks about how boomerangs function. And of course, boomerangs that return are toys, have always been toys. The Australian Aborigines did not invent these for hunting. They were just toys. Actual hunting and warfare style boomerangs are single use. They go in one direction, they don't come back. And the hunting ones frequently go horizontally and they'll hook up, which is excellent if you're going after a flock of birds. They'll go across the ground, spooks the birds take up in the air, and then this boomerang, which can be quite large, could hit more and more of the birds in flight. And he actually had a contest where they would have a pole, and then people were designing boomerangs out of cardboard within this auditorium, essentially a gymnasium, and then they would have a contest who could get their boomerang launched and caught as it went around the pole the most times in a minute. One guy did it like 20 times, which is quite impressive. He designed a boomerang that had a very short flight path, so he was only 1.5 or 2 meters. So that's the whole flight. So he's only like a meter away from the pole, but the contest wasn't about the distance, it was about how many times. And that's why his design came out that way. And there's actually a little blueprint in here just to show you what it looks like. Catch as catch can, which is about the science of catching, and that when you're running, it is actually easier to track a moving object that is under a 45-degree angle. If an object is above a 45-degree angle, it's easier to track it if you're standing still. which is why baseball players do what they do, um, which is kind of cool. Bath foam, beer foam, and the meaning of life. Talking about foam because the science of foam, the thickness of foam of a bubble's wall, how the bubbles form can affect their efficiency in its use in chemical processes, and in its mechanical nature can help delivering like a cleanser and things like that, even shaving cream. So there is science behind this, and there is actual, commercial applications for it. I think medical as well. A question of taste, which talks about how taste works, how our olfactory senses work with our taste buds to help us have a full experience, and how some of the tastes, how some of the smells that we experience are actually coming up through our sinuses from the rear and triggering things in a way that you would not expect, which I found quite fascinating. Which made me think, if someone's taste buds had been burned out, maybe the brain center that covers taste buds had been damaged, but their olfactory sense had not been damaged at all. Obviously, they're going to be able to pick up scents here, but because they're picking up some of the scents from the back, would that kind of give a ghost flavor? You know what I mean? He didn't cover that, but I thought of it when I was reading the chapter. And then the physics of sex, the actual physical process that a spermatozoa has to go through to get through the entire reproductive process to an egg, and then get to the acts of fertilization, and all the physics required in that, the going through mucous membranes, and how does it travel, and what portions of the female's reproductive system are aiding it, or which ones are inhibiting it, and when it gets to the egg, how does it penetrate? How does it shut the door behind it, essentially, so other sperm cannot also fertilize the egg. So overall, a very in-depth book. Now, chapter, I should say. Now, one of the things I liked about this is it started out very light. They're talking about Dunkin' Donuts and Dunkin' Cookies. And as the book progresses, he gets deeper and deeper into the process of science. So by the end of the book, he's really getting into some of the minutia. Sorry. And that's, I think, I eat that kind of thing up. I really dig it. I mean, I can read 19th century science texts, so I don't have a problem with getting into, pedantic detail that may be a little dry. Thankfully, this isn't dry. It was a short book. I mean, it went pretty fast. And I only read these at work, and I think I read this in a week. And it was thoroughly enjoyable, and I had a good time. So if you are into science writing, but you're looking for something that isn't going to overwhelm you from the start, but may pull you in so that you can then experience some of what it is to do real science, and some of the dead ends it leads to, and some of the real research grind, but still is an interesting read to understand how science works and what scientists do. A lot of the time, it isn't all that flashy, which cannot come as a surprise to anyone that's ever done any science writing or any scientific or mathematical research. So I recommend the book, How to Dunk a Donut. I can't remember where I picked it up, but I was captivated by the title. And I had a good time reading it. And I think that if you are into science, even if you're not into really deep stuff, you would still enjoy this.